freaking first cut. Golly. Welcome to the First Cut Podcast. I'm Rick Gehman, and this is your round one recap for this week's FedEx St. Jude Championship, the first playoff event of this year. Kyle Porter is here. KP, good to see you.
Good to see you too, Rick. I've got some trivia for you. How about that? Turning the tables on you.
I hate when I don't know the answers. It's so much easier when I know them. All right.
Yeah, that's for sure. Both questions. I looked both of these up today, not for trivia reasons, but because I was curious about things that were happening in the golf, the St. Jude Championship.
Okay.
And they both relate to guys that were kind of in the mix a little bit. So my first question is, what is Hideki Matsuyama's best FedEx Cup finish at the end of the year? So through the Tour Championship, what do you think his best finish is?
I don't think it's very good. So I'm going to say 10th.
Okay. Very close. It's 8th.
I was going to say 9th, but I guess.
And I think he's done it twice. I was intrigued by that. I think of Hideki as somebody that would have finished higher than that in terms of like hey, if you play 25 events, this is one of the 4 best guys for a year or 6 best guys or whatever. So I was intrigued by that. And then the other one is also interesting. How many times has Will Zalatoris finished or played, in the Tour Championship?
It could conceivably be 0 because his first year, he was a special temporary member. He did not get into the playoffs. What year would that have been? Could that have been 21? Then 22, he won the FedEx and then withdrew at the BMW, missed basically all of 23. And this is 24. I'm going 0.
He's hit 0 shots at East Lake.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Yeah, because I knew it was going to be, because he also showed up. I was running like best players in the playoffs, and I don't remember the number, but Will Zalatoris has played like 7 rounds in the playoffs or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, what?
Well, the one that surprised me, I think it was in your newsletter. Eric Van Rooyen was in like the top 4.
Yeah.
He's only played like 12 rounds total.
Yeah. Well, remember, he was basically the big mover last year. He was the guy that started, I don't know what he started. Let's call it like 68th and made the Tour Championship. Like he had like back-to-back top 10s, I think.
Yeah. So I was surprised that he was so far ahead of like Scheffler was way down the list, and Eric Van Rooyen was third. It's a very interesting stat because it's sort of course agnostic and just shows you like, okay, who's the best guys in the playoffs. I don't know if that, it's I would probably put more value on like who's good at specific courses, but I thought it was still interesting.
Yeah, and there's guys with a bigger sample size, like Rory's played, I don't know how many rounds he's played in the playoffs, but I'm sure it's a ton. But some of those other guys are products of their sample size.
Totally. But yeah, the Zalatoris stat shocked me. He was like 3 under early, and I was like, look up, where he's at, and can he get to the East Lake, and what's his best finish? And he's never played.
That's
he finished 30th in the FedEx Cup in like you said, 2022, but it was because he withdrew, or he didn't even show up. He was too injured to play. So I was stunned by that stat.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a good way to start the show. Now, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get you all situated for round 1 here. And our overnight leader is a guy who went out early. So we're just going to talk about him right out of the gate here. And it was Chris Kirk, who shot a 6 under 64. KP got off to a roaring start. He made the turn in 31. He was 5 under by the time he stepped on the tee at number 14, and that is where he made an ace. I believe I saw that's his 4th ace on the PGA Tour. He would go on to bogey 18, his only blemish on the card. He is in solo first right now, 1 shot clear of a chase pack including 3 names, but that moves him. So here's the big movements with the quadruple points. Chris Kirk, if it finished right now, would move from 28th to 3rd in the FedEx Cup standings.
Yeah, and Hideki's up to 4th. So yeah, we've seen this from him before, right? 2014 Deutsche Bank, he won over, I think that was it 2014? I think it was around there. I think it was the same one that Billy Horschel played so well at in terms of the FedEx Cup. This is an interesting one for a bunch of reasons. One, he made an ace. He said it was probably his 9th of his life, but he can't remember. Sick flex.
Awesome.
2, he only has 1 top 10, Rick, since winning at Kapalua.
Yeah, he did his work the first week of the year. Yeah. The Century, wins the Century. His only other top 10 was a T10 at RBC Heritage. It's not been a great year.
No, it has not. And then I think that kind of leads into the third one, which is that right now he's 12th in the President's Cup standings. And it ends, I think it's after, is it after this week or next week?
I don't know, but I'm like 65% sure it's the BMW.
Okay. I think that's right. So he's got a real opportunity to kind of make some noise late and either qualify or play his way onto the team. So there's kind of a lot of different things going on for Chris Kirk and a lot at stake for him right now, outside of just playing obviously very well in this golf tournament.
Yeah, so he is out in front, and there is, as I mentioned, 3 guys chasing. We'll get to a couple of those in just one. So actually, no, Pendrith was out in the morning, so we could talk about Taylor Pendrith here. He shot a 5 under 65. It was bogey free, and last time I checked, I'll have to grab the final numbers here. Let's see. He was losing.
First in tee to green.
Yeah, he was losing strokes. He did. He lost over a stroke putting. He smacked the cover off the ball.
Yeah. He's interesting. He's had a better year, I think, than people realize. 27th in the FedEx Cup. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's these guys at the top. You're kind of like, yeah, okay. It's the end of the first quarter, and you've got Scottie and Xander doing Scottie and Xander things. So great first day for him. It'd be a fantastic win. Again, another guy that's probably headed to the President's Cup. So really good tee to green for him, and like you said, didn't really make anything.
I would be quite confident he is on that President's Cup team without knowing his standings or anything like that. But I think he'll be on that team.
Yeah, I think he's like the highest ranked of the Canadians. I'm pretty sure.
Nick Taylor,
Connors might be up there.
Connors, yeah. Matthieu Pavon, one of the highest ranked Frenchmen in the world. He is golf's Ricky Bobby. Okay. If you ain't first, you're last. That is the motto that he lives by. He routinely goes from missing 3 cuts in a row to finishing solo 5th at the US Open out of nowhere. And he'll parlay that into a couple good finishes. Then he'll go missed cut T50, 58 in smaller field event. It's just all over the yard. Well, we got a good one today. 5 under 65, just 1 bogey on the card. That was on number 9. If you look at his stats, he lost a little bit off the tee, but otherwise was great throughout the bag. KP, he hit 15 greens in regulation. That was the most in the field, or tied for the most in the field. We talk about it all the time. You can do, a lot of these guys get 80% of their production from 10% of their starts. Pavon gets like 90% of his production from 10% of his starts.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of what you want, right? Like, you would rather it be that than a bunch of T22s. It might add up to the same FedEx Cup points, but at least you had a chance to win some golf tournaments. Now, I always struggle with this because a pro would tell you, no, I want to be more consistent. And it's like, well, I understand where you're coming from, but also, do you? Like, I think you want to win tournaments, So, yeah, he's intriguing. Is he like the breakout guy of the year in terms of barely knew who he was coming into 2024, and now he's not a household name. He might be a Rick Gehman and Kyle Porter household name, but Is he that guy?
Yeah, because I think well, he wasn't even playing on the PGA Tour full time before this year. And then when he got off to that hot start with the win, And then honestly, I mean, he was playing so well. So he wins Farmers. I think he was 2 shots back at Pebble Beach, and they did not play that final round. There is a universe in which Pavon wins both the Farmers and Pebble Beach, which is kind of crazy right out of the gate. So yeah, I mean, in terms of I don't know how you'd want to rank it. Yeah, just being more involved in our brains, he's got to be the biggest riser.
Yeah, producer Josh brought up Akshay also, which
Akshay's been around forever though. For us,
he's like 22.
Yeah.
You're right. I think we were more familiar with Akshay coming into 2024 than we were Pavon, at least in terms of like, hey, this guy is super young. He could be awesome. Pavon's like,
Pavon, Pavon, the name I would recognize scrolling through a field, but I don't think I could have picked him out of a lineup.
Yeah.
Akshay, I could have done both.
For sure. I'll throw Aaron Rye up there also. Even outside of the Wyndham last week, just been I love guys that, and I haven't looked at Pavon's numbers, but I love guys that improve year over year. And in terms of strokes gained, Aaron Rye has improved each of the last, it's either 6 or 7 years. If you look at sort of normalized strokes gained or weighted strokes gained to the field. So he's been like steady improvement, which I really respect a lot.
He's probably going to be the active leader because I think 2 of our better streaks, Matt Fitzpatrick and Max Homa, are coming to an end this year. Guys that are probably not going to improve on their numbers.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh, that'd be a fun one, is to look up. I'm sure you can query that by the time we're done, but you probably can't.
No, I cannot.
Yeah, that's a real, because you could theoretically gain like 0.01 over last year, and you're not really doing much. But if you can continually do that, by the time you're 34, 35, playing some pretty good golf.
Couple of other notables that got off to really good starts, and stop me if you've heard this before. Tommy Fleetwood was very, very good. He's in a tie for 5th, a 4 under 66. It was 3 straight birdies early. He went on a streak at 2, 3, and 4. He also birdied 8, and that was it. Finished his round with 10 straight pars, 14 pars in total. And Tommy, the last time we saw him was on the podium at the Olympics, and he is searching for another one here.
Oh, yeah, it would be a first one, I guess. Are you talking about another podium finish?
I was referring to another podium. Yeah, I was not giving him a victory by any stretch.
How do we feel about Tommy? I mean, he's had a good year, I guess. I mean, he finished top 5 at the Masters. Weird backdoor there.
There's just not enough wins. There's not enough wins to go around. There's just I mean, I know it's just because it is top of mind, but we have talked about this in a non-Olympic years all the time. The idea of podiums should be a thing. You know what I mean? It is so, who actually wins the golf tournament does not always tell the whole story. And I just think there's not enough wins to go around for all of these guys. And when you've got a couple of hogs in Scottie Scheffler and Xander Schauffele, what are these guys going to do? They just can't win.
Well, they just can't win. Yeah. I mean, I agree. Problem is when you have 27 bronze and no golds, it's like, okay, well, I think that does tell a story that you don't really want it to tell.
But there are, that story though can change very quickly.
Yeah.
Xander Schauffele. I mean, right?
Yes.
Like Tony Finau changed his story in back-to-back weeks or whatever. Like it just, that story, the ending of that story changes very quickly.
Yeah. I think my deal with Tommy is you mentioned, okay, it's not enough wins for sure. I would argue it's not really enough contention. Like he's had if you just look at the spreadsheet, you're like, yeah, okay, Tommy, good year, like solid, made a bunch of money, played well. But how many tournaments have you watched where it's like, oh, Tommy's in this? Like, not very many, right?
He just, I don't think I've ever seen him take over a golf tournament.
Well, I'm just talking about like for 2024 though.
Yeah, but I'm saying like it feels like he doesn't always play his greatest golf on Sundays. And when he does, which I thought his Sunday at the Olympics was awesome. I mean, he just gets Scottied, but it feels like he's hanging on as opposed to surging on Sunday.
Or when he is surging, there's somebody, like, I think about Portrush, there's somebody ahead of him, you know?
Yeah.
It'd be cool to see him win one of these 3 playoff events, but you know, confidence is not super high in this household.
No, but he'll probably finish T4 and improve his FedEx Cup standings. If it were to end right now, he'd move from 32nd to 21st. Justin Thomas, when he gets TPC Southwind, he puts together some solid rounds. So this was a 3 under 67 in which he made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 birdies, including 4 out of a 5-hole stretch on the second 9. This is really interesting, KP. So the scoring average was 1 under. Justin Thomas shot a 67. That is 3 under. He's in a T12. He's losing a position in the FedEx Cup standings right now. How's that possible? Because the guys that are above him on the leaderboard were behind him in the FedEx Cup standings.
That's the only way.
It's the only way. He's the only guy. He is the only guy in the top basically 18 or 20 of this event who is not picking up positions.
But it's got to be the guys right behind him, right? It's Chris Kirk.
Yes, it is. I'll tell you exactly who it is.
It's Matthieu Pavon.
Yeah, so he was 19th. It's Tommy Fleetwood, who was 32nd. It's Pendrith, who was 27th. It's Kirk, who was 28th. It's the guys who are basically within 15 or 20 spots have jumped ahead of him, even though he is beating the field.
Right, because if you're in 50th, you would almost have to be leading the tournament to have, or you probably would have to be leading the tournament to have surpassed Justin Thomas. Rick, I think JT's kind of lurking. I think he's very lurky.
Careful. I think he's been lurking for 6 months. He has not.
Well, here's the deal. Like, he plays this course great. He's kind of not being talked about. People presume he's had a bad year. He's 19th in the FedEx Cup. Is that JT standard? Probably not. Is it pretty freaking good? Yeah, absolutely. He's 6th in the field or last time I looked, he was 6th in approach play. It's something that it's kind of been off and on for the last 2 years, but when it's on, it's so good. The only issue, the only problem, the only reason I would not take him as a long shot to win this week, I mean, in terms of like as things stand right now, is I don't trust the putter at all whatsoever.
Okay, so the round just completed. There were the final numbers on Victor Perez and Emiliano Grillo, the last group out, are coming in right now. So Justin Thomas, he finished 7th. He gained 2 strokes on approach. He lost 3/4 of a stroke with the putter. I will remind you, KP, that JT has won this golf tournament losing strokes putting.
Yep, I know, and he's finished 15th top 15 2 other times. So I'm very intrigued by the position that he's in going to Saturday.
Yeah, shaping up to be a good one. We haven't even spoken about the number 2 player in the world, the number 1 player in the world, the number 1 player in the world's best friend, and Hideki Matsuyama. We're going to cover those guys after a quick word from our partners.
We need your sports news anywhere.
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
And we're back. Let's just lump these two together. Scheffler and Schauffele played together. Both shot 66s. Both got off to really great starts. Scottie was 4 under through 6. Xander birdied his first 3. They combined made just 1 bogey. That was Scottie from a greenside bunker on number 13. They both sit 2 shots off the lead. They both, of course, retain their current FedEx Cup standings positions, which are obviously 1 and 2. And they are the first and second favorites to win this golf tournament. So I can just put both those guys together.
Yeah, I mean, the phrase that comes to mind after round 1 is total control, for both of them, for this tournament, for the FedEx Cup playoffs. I mean, it feels like I'm not saying this is how it's going to turn out. It feels like both of those things are 2-horse race right now. And I wanted to point out one thing. We don't need to spend a ton of time on them because we'll talk about them plenty throughout the week. The thing that has impressed me so much, and this is Scheffler specific, but you could apply some of it to Xander. Justin Ray tweeted out a stat that I think it's not since Tiger has anybody had a less than 10% bogey percentage throughout the season. And those guys are both in the 9s right now.
Right.
And I thought about that stat whenever Scottie was on the 3rd hole. You see on the card, it's a 5. And it was a 5 that was a circus because he hits his second shot in the water. It's a par 5. Just a wipey, really a bad shot. I don't know if it was a mud ball or what. I mean, there was mud on the ball. I don't know if that's what caused it. And somehow he gets up and down. It's a 14-footer for par. And I had the golf on. I was kind of doing something else. And I see the wipey one into the water. It wasn't even really that close. And I look up like 20 minutes later and he's like 3 under because he birdied the next he was 4 under. He birdied the next 3 holes. And you're like, wait a second, what? I thought he like, how did that? And that's the thing he does so well is he keeps his rounds together. Xander does it too. But Scottie just really stands out the way that he does it. And that's why he's the number 1 player in the world. And it's a big reason why he's won 7 times so far this year. And is probably going to win at least once more over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, that was the moment I was thinking about his round as well. It's, you escape 3 with a par and then you rattle off 3 birdies in a row.
Yeah.
Just vintage stuff.
Yeah.
So
it was like, if that's the only hole you've ever watched of Scottie Scheffler, you understand the whole thing.
Correct. Yeah. So both those guys in at 66. That's 4 under par. Sam Burns got off to a really strong start, KP. He turned in 4 under and added another birdie on 10. Now he leaked a little oil coming in, bogeys on 14, 15, and 17. He also parred 16, which is a par 5. So a really tough stretch on the back. He salvages a better day with a birdie on number 18. This is kind of the frustrating thing for me a lot of times with Sam Burns is he possesses some of the best firepower that we have on the PGA Tour, but it can get away from him at times. And that's what we saw late in his round.
Yeah, it was it 15 where he hit the tree and it was like kind of all over the yard? I think it was
15, yeah, where he hits it right off the tee, and then he's like long on the second shot, and it's a kind of a circus from there.
So yeah, I agree with you. It's just a lot of, I don't know, what do we make of Burns? Like, he's obviously so good, so talented, but I think honestly it's a little bit of what I just mentioned about Scottie of it's just, it seems to be harder for him to keep rounds together, to keep that momentum going. And it sounds like such a small thing, but at that level with those margins, it becomes a huge thing over the course of a tournament. So
yeah.
I mean, I think he'll get to East Lake. I think he's a top, 30 guy once again, but I just don't know. I don't know. This sounds crazy, but I just don't know how many guys can compete at the very top right now.
Currently, he moves from 29th before the tournament started to 25th. So trying to kind of solidify that ticket to East Lake. Sam Burns in at 3 under par. That's 3 shots off the lead. Hideki Matsuyama, the last man of that 5 under trio, and he played it in the afternoon. And this was nearly a 2-pencil day for Hideki. He makes bogey on the 3rd hole. That's the par 5. So just to be clear here, the par 5s, 6 was actually I'm looking at the wrong. Here we go. The 3rd hole was the more difficult par 5, but still played under par. And then 16 was the one that everybody was taking advantage of. Hideki bogeys 3, but makes birdies on 4, 7, and 9. Then he gets on a hot stretch on the second 9, kind of opposite of what Sam Burns did. Hideki birdies 12, 14, 15, and 16 before bogeying 17. If you look at the stats, he led the field in putting, which is not something that we get to say a lot about Hideki Matsuyama.
Yeah, kind of a wild week for him, right? He's without his coach. He's without his caddy. He's never finished as high as he is right now in the FedEx Cup. I know it's round 1, but there's kind of a lot going on with Hideki. A little bit of the Burns thing where it's like, oh, there's a lot there. There's a lot of birdies, a lot of bogeys, we'll see. I mean, I think the thing that I think about him, Rick, is I think he's one of those handful of guys that can make it up to the 3 spot going to the Tour Championship. And I think he's had kind of an underrated year. I think you think about Riviera. It's not a Hideki year that necessarily stands out because he hasn't won a major. He had that 2017 run at Erin Hills when he had such a great US Open. But I think it's been a really solid Hideki year and one that he could potentially finish the highest he's ever finished in the FedEx Cup.
Yeah, and certainly trending in that way. Like Kyle said, goes from 8th to 4th in the FedEx Cup standings. That 3rd through 6 or 7, very much up in the air and very valuable over the course of the next 7 rounds. Speaking of value, producer Josh has our betting odds. This round is now officially complete, so we shouldn't see too much movement in these numbers, and I've already teased it. We've got the similar names at the top of the board here. Scottie Scheffler, 2.5 to 1, just a bit shorter than his pre-tournament odds to win now after 18. Xander Schauffele, 5.5 to 1. Hideki is 7.5 to 1. We didn't even talk about Rory. Rory McIlroy is 12 to 1. He was 2 under 68. He had an eagle on the card, offset by a couple of bogeys. So he is in a tie for 18th. Colin Morikawa and Tommy Fleetwood are in the mix as well.
Rory obviously could win this tournament. I don't know if I don't really think he's going to. I don't really know why that is.
Just a lot of guys who are in very much control of their game right now. Like, we're at the point of the year where you are going in one direction or another. Some of these guys have it all figured out, and some of them are obviously struggling. Rory feels like he's maybe treading water a little bit by his own standards, his own very lofty standards. Yeah, but he feels like he's treading water a little bit. There are some guys who are just firing right now.
I agree with that. I think I would go Xander or JT on this list. Xander and Scottie have been basically the same for the last 2 or 3 months. Overall, Scottie's had, I think, a better year. And if you look at the stats since January 1, it's been Scottie by a decent margin. But last 3 months, they've been pretty similar. Like, there's not a ton of difference. So I think you're getting value there with Xander. And then JT, it's just kind of a flyer at 28. If he makes anything, I think he's going to get into contention. But I don't know if he's going to make anything. So we'll see.
Yeah, the two best model guys are Pendrith and Thomas. Of those two, I trust Thomas that when he gets into the mix at TPC Southwind, he can kind of compete with these other guys at the top. But I'll tell you what, Hideki's been so good. I'm so bullish on Hideki for these playoffs, and 7.5 to 1. You think he's gonna blink? You think Hideki Matsuyama cares at all about Scottie Scheffler, Xander Schauffele? Doesn't even know those guys exist.
No, I agree. Since Riviera, T12 at Arnold Palmer, T6 at the Players, T7 at the Texas Open, T8 at Memorial, 6th at the US Open, and then 3rd at the Olympics. Those are kind of his best starts. I said this earlier, he's had a really good Hideki year. It's maybe not a vintage one, but it's been, I've got it here, like his 4th best year ever in terms of numbers. That could change over the next 3 events for better or worse. But yeah, he's been really good.
He's a stud. I love him. I'm full circle on Hideki. Can't get off the guy. Okay, KP.
Did Spieth excite you today at all?
Oh, man. I saw him. I didn't see a lot of it. I was kind of deep in a data project, but I looked up and I saw him hit like 2 really weak putts. And I was like, oh God, here we go. But he was 3 under. I think he gave one back late to finish at 2 under. Yeah, listen, better than a lot of guys in the field, better than I thought he was going to do. He seems like he's really struggling through a lot of stuff. So hang on, put it together. He's got to play well over the next 3 rounds, or this will be his last 3 rounds of the season.
Yeah, I was in and out a little bit as well, but he hit some shots that he was yelling about. He kept doing this like fake club slam, and it hurt my back to look at it. It's like, dude, we're fine. You're 2 under, 3 under. We just need to just chill a little bit. Like, just enjoy the 67, or I guess it was 68, and move on to Friday.
He is a special boy.
He was screaming at this ball on it was a par 3. I can't remember what hole. And it landed on the fringe, and he chipped in for 2, and it's just like just insane stuff.
He's sick. He is so sick. Anything else? Anything else for this Thursday?
No, that's it. It was a fun first day. I'm excited to see how this one kind of shakes out.
We'll be back after the next 3 rounds to break everything down. We also have a live show tomorrow. So, Josh, correct me if I'm wrong. The show tomorrow on CBS Sports Network is at 2 p.m. Eastern time. That is 2 p.m. Eastern time. And yes, I have confirmed that is correct. It'll be myself, Patrick, and Greg. We'll miss you, KP. And
kids in school. I've got an off day. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Oh, boy. You should play golf.
It's crazy. I think I might.
Yeah, smart. Good guy. So we'll see you a lot more the rest of the week. But for now, I'm going to say big thanks. Producer Josh does all the hard work behind the scenes. That right there, Kyle Porter at Kyle Porter CBS. And you can find me at Rick Run Good. This has been The First Cut. We'll catch you next time.